again, Rachel.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm ecstatic to make it here all in one piece. I came from Milwaukee, Wisconsin this morning, so it's going to be a very fun, long day for me today, but which I enjoy. This is an absolute passion of mine. As she was saying, I come from the organization SHED, which I founded, and before that I started SHED, I was actually a teacher for 7 years before that. So I have been in the school systems. I've worked in Milwaukee, where I worked at an at-risk school for 4 years. So I did get to work with those that needed the extra attention and the extra love and support through different drug use and gang activity and teen parents, etc. But then while I was teaching and involved in that, this is something I knew that I always wanted to do. As you'll hear a little bit later on about my personal story, that I'm recovering anorexic, bulimic, as well as compulsive exerciser and a binge eater. So I've had all of the full gamut that goes along with that. So doing this type of work has always been a passion of mine since I was very young. So eventually I quit teaching and I went back to get my master's in counseling, and currently that's what I'm doing with SHED, is doing one-on-one counseling as well as presentations like this to conferences, to students as young as 5th grade, to the parents. It doesn't matter what venue. I'm absolutely make myself available to teach people about this topic. So as I was teaching and when I was teaching, the biggest word that we heard over and over and over was always prevention. And I know personally when I was teaching, I'm like, not that word again. It just kind of eventually got sickening. But I'm going to say the same thing in regards to eating disorders, but I'm going to make sure that you understand the dire absolute need for it. Prevention for eating disorders. And why I say that is because the statistics and the recovery is so much more challenging, and the statistics of recovery for those with eating disorders is not as positive. 50% of those that get an eating disorder will have it for 7 to 15 years. That's a very long period of time. Personally, I had it 9 years of my life. 25% will quote unquote recover, fully recover, and the other 25%, this is the one that gets me the most, 25% of those that have an eating disorder will have it either for life or they will die with it. Again, that's a large and alarming number. And you'll see some more stats later on when we compare it to the different types of addictions out there. Eating disorders definitely are not getting enough attention for what it deserves. And so that's part of what I'm trying to hopefully expose to you and give that knowledge to you, so that you have fire, that when you go back to your schools or your community, that you're more fired up to do more type of prevention on that, doing groups, making sure health teachers are properly educating on it, educating those that do lunchroom supervision, doing groups in your schools, etc. Those type of things are absolutely necessary, and you'll see why as it goes on. It's so important that you guys have a very, very strong voice against it, because as you see up there, the pressures on eating disorders, they are enormous. So you have to have a stronger voice that counteracts the pressures that are out there. So here are some examples of different pressures. There's teenagers that are doing weight loss comparisons, and they're charting their weight, trying to compete with other teens online. And I'm not so surprised, I'm sure you're not either, when we think about the online effect of how online has done a lot of damage for our young people. But in addition to that, when we have shows like The Biggest Loser, where they're doing competitions for how much weight they can lose, the fastest they can lose it, what do you think our young people are going to do? When everyone's celebrating for them and then they get punished for not losing enough, they're naturally going to mimic that. Again, you'll hear more of this later, but it's not just because it's all of media's fault, but it grabs the young people that don't feel like they're valued enough or good enough, etc., that they're using that type of means to try to fill up those needs. So that is one pressure that they get. There's different things called pro-anorexia websites. How many have heard of that? Okay, about half of you, that's good. These are websites that actually promote a person having an eating disorder and keeping an eating disorder. And there's actually 1 to 5, one recovery site to 5 of these pro-anorexia websites out there, and it's alarming. So there's all different things on there, like how to eat as little as possible, how to lie to your parents, how to make yourself feel full when you haven't eaten. There's a picture on there called the 6-pack ribs instead of the 6-pack abs. All these different things to try to motivate and keep a person sick. And there's a creed on there that I want to read to you because it shows the depths of that the eating disorder can go. And this is why I start out saying prevention. Because once the addiction goes and it goes, it multiplies on itself, and it's almost like they're in this lost cage. I know that that's exactly where I got to, that if I wasn't under 18 and my father didn't purposely take me in, God only knows if I would be standing alive today. My guess is no. And this is the Anna Creed that some people literally, some even go to the extent of pledging in blood to this. And it says this: "Thin is beauty, therefore I must be thin and remain thin if I wish to be loved. Food is my ultimate enemy. I may look and I may smell, but I may not touch. I must think about food every second of every minute of every hour of every day in ways of avoiding it. I must weigh myself first thing every morning and keep that number in mind throughout the remainder of the day. Should that number be greater than it was the day before, I will fast that entire day. I shall not be tempted by the enemy, which is food, and I shall not give in to temptation if it should arise. If I am in such a weakened state and I should cave, I will feel guilty and punish myself accordingly, for I have failed her. I will be thin at all cost. It is the most important thing. Nothing else matters. I will devote myself to Anna. She will be with me everywhere I go, keeping me in line. No one else matters. She is the only one who cares about me and who understands me. I will honor her and make her proud." So if you can see the depths of which that goes, it's almost a religion. It's become a religion for them. And it does get to the point where they do not see anything wrong with it, especially those that are fully fledged into the pro-anorexia websites. I know one of the most popular inpatient facilities that I won't name said that 50% of those that came in to their facility had habitually been using these sites. So there is another force out there encouraging the behavior.
They're talking like it's a person.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that. He said they're talking like it's a person, and that's how it's actually deemed. It's called Anna. If you hear those kind of terms, Anna, Mia, Ed, they actually do refer to it as if it is another person, because it becomes their everything. If you heard what it said, was there room for anyone else in that creed? No family, no friends, no life. It was everything about Anna.